911, what's your emergency?
It's the trainer. Something's wrong. He's not resurfacing after the interaction in the main tank.
Is she visible? Is she breathing?
No, she's still underwater. There's blood. He's not letting go. Please send help now.
The frantic shouts ripped through the air, raw with terror. This wasn't just a tragic mistake. It was a warning ignored for years. If this story shakes you, it should. Because it's not the first time. And if nothing changes, it won't be the last. Welcome to Animal Reckoning, where we uncover the stories they try to forget. It was supposed to be just another show at SeaWorld Orlando, a choreographed dance between woman and beast. A performance perfected through years of training, trust, and repetition. But what happened next would leave hundreds of witnesses frozen in disbelief and would mark the last day of trainer Rachel Monroe's life. In front of a full arena, in broad daylight, something snapped. This isn't just a tragic story, it's a wake-up call. If you believe animals deserve freedom and the truth deserves a voice, hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and share it to keep the conversation going. Rachel Monroe was more than just a marine mammal trainer. From the time she was a child, she had been captivated by the ocean. While most kids collected seashells, Rachel memorized the names of every species of whale and dolphin. She could mimic their calls by the age of 10. By 16, she was volunteering at her local aquarium cleaning tanks, taking notes, asking questions no one else thought to ask. By 24, she had earned a biology degree with honors, specializing in marine behavior. But it wasn't the academic accolades that set her apart. It was her ability to connect with the animals, to read them, to feel them. Colleagues often said she had an unspoken language with the orcas, the big black and white predators of the sea that others treated with caution. They seemed to lean in toward Rachel, trust her, and respond to her in ways that baffled even veteran trainers. She was recruited by SeaWorld's flagship marine park within a year of graduation. It was a dream come true, or so it seemed. Rachel rose quickly through the ranks, becoming one of the park's most trusted orca handlers. Visitors would remember her by name. Trainers in training looked to her for guidance. She wasn't just a performer in the pool. She was a protector, a voice, a quiet advocate behind the scenes for better treatment and more enrichment for the whales in her care. Rachel believed in coexistence, that humans and these massive predators could share a bond built on respect, not dominance. She often said, "They don't work for us, we work together." But in the world of marine entertainment, not everything is as it appears on stage. Behind the smiles, behind the perfect jumps and synchronized waves, there are complex creatures, intelligent, emotional, and sometimes unpredictable. And Rachel knew that better than most. But on that day, even she couldn't have known what was coming. SeaWorld Orlando stood as a monument to human fascination with the sea. Built along the coast and stretching over 60 acres of carefully engineered enclosures, theaters, and artificial lagoons, it attracted millions of visitors each year. The park's crown jewel was the Shamu Show, a high-energy, emotionally charged performance featuring some of the largest predators ever held in captivity. Behind the towering glass barriers and crashing waves, these killer whales performed with breathtaking precision. They leapt, spun, and splashed on cue, creating awe in the eyes of children and wonder in the hearts of adults. But behind the applause was a long and complicated history, one filled with beauty, but also with shadows. SeaWorld's Orca program began over 3 decades ago, during an era when capturing wild orcas was still legal in some parts of the world. Early shows were simple displays of power and obedience. Over time, the choreography grew more elaborate. Trainers entered the water with the animals. They surfed on dorsal fins. They kissed the whales on the nose. What the public didn't see was the immense psychological and physical pressure placed on both humans and animals to maintain this illusion of harmony. Among the orcas at SeaWorld, one stood out, a massive 12,000-pound bull named Tilikum. Captured off the coast of Iceland as a calf, Tilikum had spent over 2 decades in captivity. At 22 feet long, he was a commanding presence, muscular, broad-finned, with deep scarring on his flanks from dominance battles with other males. Trainers described him as intelligent, moody, and unpredictable. Tilikum had been involved in several close calls over the years, moments when he failed to respond to commands, showed signs of agitation, or displayed territorial behavior towards staff in the pool. Notably, Tilikum had been linked to 2 prior deaths, a trainer in 1991 at SeaLand of the Pacific and a trespasser in 1999 at SeaWorld Orlando. Despite these incidents, he was kept in rotation performing stunts for packed crowds. These incidents were recorded, noted, and filed away in incident reports. Reports that rarely made it outside the park's internal logs. Experts in marine mammal behavior had long warned that orcas, especially males in captivity, could develop behavioral abnormalities. These animals are used to roaming up to 100 miles a day in the wild, traveling with tight-knit family pods and forming complex social bonds. In a concrete tank isolated from natural stimuli and often kept in artificial pods, frustration builds. Dr. Elaine Satterfield, a renowned marine biologist and former consultant to SeaWorld, once stated, "When you remove an animal like an orca from its natural environment, you're not just putting it in a tank, you're putting its mind in a box, and sometimes it breaks." Despite the warnings, Tilikum remained a star. He drew crowds, he performed, and most importantly, he trusted Rachel. Or at least, he had. But in the weeks leading up to that day, something had shifted. Tilikum had started floating listlessly at the surface. He was less responsive to trainers. He began jaw-popping more frequently, a known sign of agitation or dominance in orcas. The signs were subtle, but they were there. On the morning of the attack, the surface of the water was calm, deceptively calm. No one knew that beneath it, something was boiling. February 24th, 2010. It was a bright, humid afternoon at SeaWorld Orlando. The air buzzed with anticipation as visitors poured into the amphitheater for the park's Dine with Shamu show. Backstage, Rachel Monroe prepared as she always did, running through her pre-show checklist, checking in with the handlers, and watching Tilikum through the glass as he circled the performance tank slowly and deliberately. At 2 p.m., Rachel entered the poolside platform, her wetsuit zipped, hair tied back, headset in place. The stadium filled with cheers as Tilikum breached the water in a perfect arc, soaking the front row. It looked like any other performance, smooth, rehearsed, routine. But subtle things were off. Tilikum hesitated on 2 cues. He delayed sliding onto the platform. His tail slaps were more aggressive, creating deeper reverberations across the pool surface. Trainers noticed it. Rachel saw it too. Still, she continued guiding him with practice movements, reward signals, and calm body language. The bond between them, forged over a decade, was what made her confident, perhaps too confident. The routine reached a familiar sequence, a close contact maneuver where Rachel stood on a submerged platform, face to face with Tilikum. She extended her arm as a signal for a side swim. According to a witness sitting in Section B, she was signaling the orca when suddenly it just changed. The whale dipped under the surface, then came back up, but not in the right spot. It was wrong. Without warning, Tilikum lunged. His jaws closed around Rachel's arm, yanking her into the water with terrifying force. Gasps erupted from the crowd. Some thought it was part of the show. Others knew instantly it was not. Under the water, a violent struggle began. Trainers on the edge of the pool scrambled to deploy emergency signals. Underwater tone generators designed to interrupt and redirect the whale's focus were activated. Tilikum ignored them. He held Rachel beneath the surface, thrashing, turning, and diving. Seconds turned into a minute. A minute turned into 2. Rescue protocols were initiated. Staff raced to close the pool's emergency gates to isolate Tilikum. Others threw nets and floating barriers into the water, trying to corner him. Still, he evaded them, surfacing only briefly before diving again with Rachel still in his grasp. One trainer attempted to lure Tilikum away with fish and vocal commands from the medical pool. He did not respond. Witnesses described the horrifying scene. The whale approached the glass side of the 35-foot deep tank at Shamu Stadium, jumped up, and grabbed the trainer by the waist, shaking her so violently that her shoe came off. Rachel's screams were swallowed by the churning water. Her body was tossed like a rag doll. Every attempt to break free from Tilikum's grip was met with more resistance. She fought with everything she had, but Tilikum was stronger. Every pull underwater brought darkness closer. Finally, at 2:41 p.m., Tilikum released her. Staff pulled Rachel's body from the water. She was unresponsive. Paramedics attempted CPR poolside as stunned visitors were ushered from the stands. Children cried. Parents stared, speechless. She was officially pronounced dead at 2:41 p.m. In less than 7 minutes. A celebrated career, a devoted life, and a relationship built over 10 years came to a violent, irreversible end. What caused Tilikum to snap? Was it stress? Was it instinct? Or was it something more? Something we still don't fully understand. What remained in the pool was silence, and a question that would haunt SeaWorld forever. In the hours following the incident, SeaWorld went into immediate lockdown. Scheduled shows were canceled. The amphitheater was cordoned off. A short statement was released to the media just before sunset. We are deeply saddened to confirm the passing of one of our most experienced and beloved trainers, Rachel Monroe. Our thoughts are with her family, friends, and the entire SeaWorld team during this devastating time. We are fully cooperating with authorities to investigate the incident. The park declined to answer follow-up questions. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, launched an immediate investigation. Federal wildlife officials were contacted. Veterinarians began behavioral assessments of Tilikum, and hours of show footage were reviewed frame by frame. Internal logs were examined. Reports from previous incidents involving Tilikum were pulled, incidents the public had never been told about. The autopsy report was completed within 48 hours. The findings were brutal. Rachel Monroe had sustained extensive trauma, blunt force injuries to the chest, abdomen, and neck, several fractured ribs, a dislocated shoulder, and pulmonary hemorrhaging. The final cause of death was ruled as drowning following prolonged submersion. But the medical examiner noted that even without drowning, the internal trauma alone could have been fatal. The details leaked to the press within days, and once they did, the public response was immediate and fierce. News outlets ran headlines that gripped the nation. Orca kills veteran trainer. Tragedy at SeaWorld, killer whale turns deadly. Footage from the moments before the attack. Smiling children. Rachel, waving to the crowd, was replayed over and over again. Commentators debated the ethics of animal performances. Former trainers came forward. One told Express, Co. K. We've been warning about Tilikum for years. That whale was showing signs of distress. No one wanted to listen. Protests erupted outside the park entrance within days. Animal rights groups called for the immediate release of all captive orcas. Social media exploded with hashtags: Justice for Rachel, Free Tilikum, Shut down SeaWorld. Memorials were set up along the park gates, flowers, photos, handwritten letters. Some mourned a fallen trainer. Others demanded change. The debate was no longer just about a single incident. It became a flashpoint for captivity, animal rights, and how far we've pushed the line between entertainment and exploitation. And through it all, the question kept resurfacing: could this have been prevented? And if it could, why wasn't it? The tragedy of Rachel Monroe wasn't just a singular event. It was part of a disturbing pattern, one that has haunted marine parks for decades. At the center of the debate is a simple question: should orcas, intelligent, social, wide-ranging predators, be kept in captivity at all? For years, the answer from the industry was yes. The shows were safe. The whales were well cared for. The trainers were professionals. But the attack on Rachel, like others before it, shattered the illusion. Marine biologists have long warned of the psychological cost captivity places on orcas. In the wild, these animals travel up to 100 miles a day. They hunt, socialize, and sing in dialects unique to their pods. In tanks, their world is reduced to a few concrete walls, a strict feeding schedule, and a performance routine that barely scratches the surface of their mental and physical needs. A 2021 article in Wired quoted former trainers who described the orca's environment as a pressure cooker. Stress, boredom, and social instability often lead to abnormal behaviors, self-harm, aggression toward other whales, and, in rare but devastating cases, attacks on humans. Captivity doesn't just confine the orca's body, it alters its mind. Dr. Jen Sorensen, a marine behaviorist, put it plainly: we've underestimated them. Orcas remember. They grieve. They strategize. They get bored. And when they do, they sometimes lash out, not because they are monsters, but because they are sentient. The parallels between Rachel's death and others were striking. Both were experienced. Both were beloved by their animals. And both were lost in facilities that had been warned of potential danger, but chose to continue operating. What complicates the picture further is the emotional bond trainers form with these animals. They don't see them as ticking time bombs. They see them as partners, as family. Many trainers have said they willingly accept the risk, but the public watching from the outside began asking, should that risk even exist? At what point does entertainment cross the line into exploitation? The aftermath of Rachel's death fueled legislative momentum. Petitions gained millions of signatures. Lawmakers reopened stalled bills. The public conversation shifted from wonder to worry, from awe to accountability. Because when one of the ocean's top predators turns on the one person it trusted most, it forces us to rethink everything we thought we knew about captivity, consent, and consequence. And as the tank glass reflected only silence, it became clear this was never just about a show gone wrong. It was about a system built on fragile trust, and that trust had finally shattered. In the wake of tragedy, there are always echoes. For SeaWorld and for everyone who knew Rachel Monroe's show, those echoes became impossible to ignore. Just weeks after the incident, the park announced a complete suspension of all in-water performances with orcas. Trainers were moved to dry stage interactions only. Contact protocols were re-evaluated. Emergency procedures were rewritten from the ground up. And while the move was seen by some as an overdue correction, others saw it as a hollow response. Too late to save Rachel. Still, the changes continued. A new department was created to oversee orca enrichment and mental stimulation. Outside consultants, marine biologists, behaviorists, And even former critics of the park were brought in to design safer, more ethical training programs. The Orca program, once the crown jewel of SeaWorld's brand, was quietly scaled back. But Rachel's legacy wasn't written in policy alone. Her family, devastated by the loss, chose to channel their grief into something lasting. The Rachel Branch Show Foundation was formed, with a mission to support marine mammal research, fund safety training for animal handlers, and advocate for responsible wildlife stewardship. Scholarships were awarded to students pursuing careers in marine science. Donations poured in from around the world. Colleagues at SeaWorld held a candlelight vigil beside the main tank. Trainers stood in silence. Wetsuits zipped. Heads bowed. Flowers floated on the water. Tilikum, the orca who had taken her life, circled slowly, silently beneath the surface. Friends and family described her not as a thrill seeker, but as a caretaker, a listener, someone who believed that trust, even between species, was sacred. One former co-worker said, "She never treated the whales like tools. She spoke to them like equals. That's what made her special." Another added, "She wasn't naive about the risks, but she believed in the work. She believed in the connection." For many, the tragedy of her death could not be separated from the beauty of her life. A life driven by passion, grounded in compassion, devoted to the creatures she loved. Rachel Shore's story ended in violence, but her legacy lives on in every conversation sparked by her death, every policy reformed, every young scientist inspired, and every orca somewhere given a little more space to live as nature intended. Rachel Shore's story is a somber reminder of the complex relationship between humans and the wild. It's a story of passion, of a woman who gave everything to the creatures she loved. But it's also a story of power, confinement, and the delicate line between trust and danger. Her death forced a global conversation not just about orcas in captivity, but about the choices we make in the name of entertainment, about the cages we build, not only with steel and concrete, but with ignorance, profit, and pride. Can true connection exist in a space built on control? Can we claim to love an animal and yet deny it the very freedom that defines its nature? These are not easy questions, but they are necessary ones. As parks begin to evolve and policies begin to shift, one thing becomes clear: Rachel didn't die in vain. Her story has inspired a deeper look at how we treat the animals in our care. It has driven reform, sparked awareness, and brought compassion to the forefront. But the work isn't finished. If Rachel's story moved you, if it made you pause, reflect, or question, let that be the beginning. Support marine conservation. Educate yourself on the realities of captivity. Share stories like hers. Speak up for those who cannot. Because behind every performance, behind every glass wall, there is a story, and sometimes it ends in silence. Thank you for watching. If you found this story meaningful, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Your support helps us keep telling stories that matter, the ones too important to forget or question. Let this be the beginning. Support marine conservation. Educate yourself on the realities of captivity. Share stories like hers. Speak up for those who cannot. Because behind every performance, behind every glass wall, there is a story, and sometimes it ends in silence. Thank you for watching. If you found this story meaningful, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Your support helps us keep telling stories that matter, the ones too important to forget.